digital era, should parenting be revisited and tutored? And I hope that it will generate a very lively discussion, and hopefully a conclusion can be reached and not further confusion. Okay, so Dr. Banerjee, as a dean and an educator who has not directly been involved in parenting, but as someone from the academic field and someone who has to interact with guardians, what are some of the issues that guardians and parents come to you, especially in recent times, because you've been working for 25 years, so what are the things that they're coming to you?
Actually, we had just come out of the COVID situation, and sadly enough, parents are not sensitized. That's the harsh reality. And we find at the administrative end, we tend to encounter parents when they have hit the rock bottom. So cases are at their extreme stages when the parents usually come to us. For instance, I'll share with you, this was of course during the pre-COVID times, and we had, in our institution, they are very paranoid. The authorities are very paranoid about attendance issues. Okay, you know how the Jesuits, the missionary colleges operate. So they're extremely paranoid about attendance issues, and there was one particular student I remember whose attendance had hit the rock bottom, very 75% being the criteria, and he had barely 20 or 25%. Then automatically the parents were summoned, and when the parents arrived, what they revealed was something very extraordinary, because they complained that the student carried out his normal functioning day-to-day activity in a perfect normal manner, getting up, brushing, but he refuses to go to the college. He is busy with his mobile phone throughout the day, but he has his lunch at the normal time, dinner at the normal time. Everything moves normally in his schedule except college, and he refuses to go, and he is extremely rude and arrogant when confronted by his parents. Okay, this was an extreme case. But coming down even to the classroom situation, mobile phones have become a challenge. Today, you are intensely discussing some literary topic, and you look at the face of the student, and you know from the face itself the student is not there. Okay, or sometimes they pretend they nod their head, and you see busy down underneath in their desk. Suddenly when you shift your focus, they're busy with their Instagram or their WhatsApp conversation. Okay, sometimes it takes the mold of obsession. But when Rimali is talking about parental sensitivity, sadly it's extremely lacking. And it only comes at a much later stage when situations have gone out of control, which implies that there is a need, a dire need for parental counseling. When it comes to handling screen time or kind of handling games, obsession with games, or maybe a conversation which they should have ended in the night, which had continued throughout rather late, and it continues even in the classroom the following day. Okay, so it takes its toll on the students, and especially this hide and seek game. We encounter students in their late adolescence or early youth, where there are plenty of distractions, and even hormones are conspiring at that time. So at that particular time, they're extremely vulnerable to a lot of issues around. So at that juncture, parenting, I believe, communication, I believe, is a very key important factor. But unfortunately, parental awareness is not there. And when we come, students are extremely adept these days in kind of dodging issues and pinning it down. It calls for extremely clever, intelligent parenting. And parents are most of the cases outwitted. And it's a reality. Sad, or sometimes it's kind of comes, as I told you, too late. Depends on the circumstances. But the situation is grave, and I would say that definitely parenting, it needs to be tutored. There's some sort of guidance which is required, which would be, as an academician and as an administrator, we feel it very strongly now. It's a real problem.
Thank you. But you have already moved on to round 3 and round 3 discussions. So I'm kind of at a loss as to what I'm going to do after this. So anyway, let's move on to Mr. D.Dasgupta. And basically, you've been in the IT sector, and you're a father of 2 daughters. So the combination, IT and being a parent, a lot has changed. Social norms have changed. So don't go into the digital part because that's round 2. Just stick to what your thoughts are about the topic on parenting and whether they should be tutored and revisited. Revisited and tutored, not retutored. They weren't tutored in the first place.
I would like to start with the tutoring part. See, I have been in technology pretty much all my working life. Right? A lot of these digital things that you're looking at, is the creation of a small group of people, out of which sadly I'm a part of. So the problems that you're facing today, I'm partly responsible. So I admit liability. On the other hand, when I'm looking at, you talked about being operating. So as a father of a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, I'm thinking, technology, I know how to control it. So, yes, they have internet. What I would do is I'll keep the modem in my room, switch it off. They won't have internet in the night, they need to go to sleep, right? And I'm feeling good. So one night I'm up at about 4 in the morning and I need to go catch a flight. And I'm seeing both my daughters, one of whom is sitting there, are on the internet. And I'm like, I don't ask them then, I come back. And my elder daughter tells me, I know you switched off your modem, but we hacked the password of the flat next door. Now, it is a fact that then I can be one of 2 things. I can say, you shouldn't do that and scold them or whatever. Or I can feel very proud that they have my genes. The fact that they hacked a password to get onto the internet at 9-year-old is a sign of great things to come. Right? So the tutoring is there. But I think in my next round, as Rima keeps reminding me, I would talk about what is it that we need to know. And in this case, believe me, there is a saying called, if you can't beat them, join them. That is exactly what is missing from parenting. You need to join the digital revolution. You need to join what is happening in the technology. If you don't join that, if you don't understand that, you will have no idea what these people are required as guidance and what they are up to and where you can help and where you can basically step back and say, I think they understand this more than me. All I need to do is put in a value system so they would utilize it correctly.
You have actually hit the nail on its head, or whatever it's supposed to do. But basically, you should now be teaching parents about, teaching them all the things that they need to do in order to be able to handle their children better. And I think, with Sudeshna Di, I've done with, West Bengal Commission of Child Rights, we have had discussions that parents really need to know much more. They must be as knowledgeable. So I think you brought up a very, very relevant point here. Now we come to Sudeshna Di, and you are the chairperson of WBC PCR. And you see all kinds of children from all sections. And they are, their neighbor, their school, their parents, etc. in the cyberspace. A lot of them are being abused. Do you actually get families where it is evident that parents are actually contributing or directly or indirectly to this abuse?
not that we get families who are directly adding to it. I just want to start with two things that have happened in my life. We are perhaps the first generation parents who have had to deal with children born in the internet era. My son was born in 1991. In 2003, when the internet was it wasn't so popular. I had a mobile phone, but those were the old-fashioned, not smartphones. So I remember he was a phone child because I used to work 14 hours and nowadays you have CCTVs at home, but I would call him up. So one particular day he said, "Ma, I'm 13 now, please don't call me up so many times." The other thing so I said, "No, we are worried about you, you're our only child." He said, "Why don't you have 2 more?" So that was his solution. Okay. Secondly, when he was same age, I used to be very strict. Just the other day, that's yesterday, day before, he told me, "You were a terrible mom, you didn't let me do stayovers. Everybody used to go and spend nights." So I said, "No, I used to regulate your stayovers, and anyway, all your friends used to be in our house the whole day because I was not at home. So why do you have to go over and stay over at somebody else's?" So he said, "At night you were there, so I let him go for a stayover." He went to a friend, and I came back home. I went off. I used to be dog tired, and I'm one of those people who just has to hit the pillow and she's off. 4:35 in the morning, the land phone kept ringing. I picked up the phone. I wasn't in the commission, so it couldn't have been the helpline or anything. I just picked up the phone and I thought it was one of my friends who was getting, over anxious. So I picked it up and said, "Hello." There was this anxious voice on the other side, a lady on the other side, whose house my son was in. She said, "Do you know what your son and my son have been doing the whole night?" I said, "What?" "They've been looking at nude pictures of girls." I said, "Are you sure it was nude pictures of girls?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Don't worry, just go to sleep. We'll deal with it tomorrow." It's quite normal if they want to see nude pictures of girls. So the next day when my son came back, I told him, "See, why were you doing this? You're only 13 or 14. And Dhruv's mother got very upset. So he says, "Ma, we've all watched Titanic. There was a nude scene there. You never objected to it." So you see, that they have their logic. You have to be part of it. Parents, it's no point getting hysterical. I'll end this part by saying Anuna had also gone. We'd gone to Puri from a program in Bhubaneswar. There we met somebody who was with his little children, 2 of them, and it was just after the schools had reopened. So I asked the parent, "Your children's schools haven't reopened?" He said, "Ha, khule gache, 7 din holo." You brought him, they haven't been to school for 2 years, now you স্কুলে কিছু হচ্ছে না, ওই মেন্টাল কি সব হচ্ছে, মেন্টাল কাউন্সেলিং। আমার বাচ্চা কি পাগল নাকি যে মেন্টাল কাউন্সেলিং লাগবে? তাই আমি পুরি নিয়ে এসেছি। So you see, it's still there. Absolutely. And it is something in the commission, what you asked me, yes, the first generation we have from the rural sector, the first generation learners, they get into trouble. They get trafficked also because of the internet. But that is a different issue. That is a much bigger issue. But I am talking about, say, even with parents who are quote unquote educated. They are not educated enough as far as the digital world is concerned. And I agree with him. I've joined it with my son rather than fight it.
Thank you. And thank you for that wonderful example that you gave. I have a similar example where one day my son, who was 15, he was on the computer and he was watching nude pictures. And my husband, Rama, he's here, he went into the room and asked Obik, "What are you doing?" So he said, I think he was told that, why are you watching this? You are 15, why are you watching this? So he said, je 15 বছরে দেখবো না তো কখন দেখবো? So I think, yes, I think this is, see, when we were young, there was a lot of pornographic magazines. There were, you know, on Park Street, there were a lot of those shady book shops where people, yeah, Free School Street, exactly. There were magazines hidden, and you know, if people got sort of got hold of it, then I mean, it's as though suddenly we become parents and we become this dhua tulsi pata. I mean, we've all gone through stuff that we were forbidden to do. So I think that you know, we need to also remember our own childhood. Now I come to Anuttama, and Anuttama actually doesn't see children. She sees young adults onwards. But so my question to you here is that, really speaking, I think by the time they're adults, you know, the question of parenting is no longer that important, because it is assumed that the বড় হয়ে গেছে, এখন তো সব বুঝে ফেলার কথা, এখন আবার বাবা মাকে কথায় কথায় দোষ দেওয়ার তো সময় নেই। But if there, I mean, what the kind of people that you see, the clients who come to you, what is the impact of faulty parenting? What are the kind of young adults that you see, those who have had faulty parenting?
Well, I would start with an example. I was also exposed to a completely new information. You know, few months back, I do a regular show, Loke Ki Bolbe. So there was a topic, jodi bari theke alada hui Loke Ki Bolbe. So the video team that who work with me, they thought that people will write letters about their in-laws. In case we have to be separated from our in-laws, what would people say? So they would probably be receiving letters from those quarters. But when we got the letters, almost 80% of them came from young adults who want to be separated from their own parents. And they were writing blatantly that we are the victims of toxic parenting. In fact, I also received a letter from a woman who said that I feel so good in my in-laws' house. In fact, I got married not for my husband. He's okay. I probably wouldn't have married. I would have just been in a relationship. But I got married because I liked my mother-in-law. She's so liberating. She doesn't stop me from doing anything. This is such a reassuring feeling. I have never got that in my family. So that also added a perspective that sometimes parenting can go this wrong, even when we grow up, that we do not want to be a part of this family, we do not want to stay under the same roof. Let's say when we are, you know, growing up, of course it impacts us, but here I would also mention a few things very quickly. I don't think, Rimadi, there is any perfect parenting, because we have to look at compatible parenting. There is no perfect relationship. There are compatible relationships. So I have also seen people where the parents never fought. Okay, I come from a family where I've never seen my parents fighting. They were such great lovers, enmeshed in each other all the time, and I always felt like an outsider in the same house. I always felt that, okay, so what am I doing here? Because most of the time they were so much into themselves. So apparently I have not witnessed any parental fights, but did that give me a perfect parenting? No. Don't I have complaints about my parents? Of course. I really don't think we would ever get a case study, a model study, where somebody will tell you, well, I have perfect parents. I have had a perfect childhood. That's an utopia. That doesn't happen. And parenting needs to be in tune with the child. Nobody can give you that certificate other than your child. So you have to take that from your child. There are 3 areas which I believe are very important that we keep learning while in our formative years when we are shaping up. One is, how am I going to see myself? How am I going to see others? And exactly how my parents are dealing with the world will also help me to develop world values. These 3 are extremely important aspects, and we often do not even realize how we are influencing these aspects in our child, particularly when the child goes to the school. How are we encouraging the separation process? How are are we also helping the child to develop relationship with themselves? Because when we talk about attachment styles, it's not necessarily about the other, it is also about yourself. So if I see that my father is constantly worrying when my mom is not back home, I would also learn that. আমরা একটু আগে স্কিটে দেখলাম বাবু খেয়ে ছুটিনার জন্যও somebody is harming herself. Now this insecure attachment style, I might witness. I might start calling that love. I might start telling myself, I love you, that's why I'm doing it. I'm not really seeing that it's not love, it's something else. I just cannot get rid of my anxiety. Or I might also learn from my parents, this is another area, that maybe they are giving me not really unconditional positive regard, that's again an utopia, but unconditional negative regard, extremely harmful. আমি জানি না আমি কেন বকা খাচ্ছি. There are a lot of children, they are clueless why were they scolded. And this experience doesn't only happen in houses and families, it also happens in schools at times. Why exactly are you scolded? I know about a cousin of mine whose name was Rohini. In her school, she was told, I'm taking the name because otherwise this example will not make meaning. In her school, she was told, Rohini, এরকম একটা নষ্টমীর চরিত্রে তোমাদের বাবা মার নাম রাখতে লজ্জা করে না, কাল থেকে তোমার নাম নয়ন. She didn't even read Bishop till then. She had no clue what the principal is talking about. She lost her identity. So I think it's not only about parents, it can be two fathers, it can be two mothers, it can be a single mother, it can be anybody. Whosoever is interacting with the child, we have to be very careful what exactly are we sending across. How are we behaving, with each other in front of the child, not only in our intimate relationships, but also the people who serve us at home. When we are going to a restaurant, when we are talking to other people, my mother always tells me to be very patient, but when she is in a party, she is throwing a spanner. These are very important cues, I believe, and they leave deep impact upon us.
Thank you, Thomas, for this very, I think you made a lot of things clear, and the most important thing that you have raised here is that there are no perfect parents. And I think that this whole, the skits and our discussion is because, there are no perfect people, there are no, perfect relations, and I think parenting is a very, very tough role. It's an extremely difficult role to play. And at one stage, I used to say that give me 10 violent patients dancing on top of my table. I know I have the knowledge to handle them. But I don't know when something is going wrong in my son's behavior or academics. Because I'm an involved parent, I have found it to be very difficult, to be very frustrating. And the other thing that parents do is they always ask themselves, where did I go wrong? So with everything that goes wrong in a child, whether it be a 6-year-old or a 60-year-old, there is always this question, আমি কোথায় কি ভুল করছি? And এখানে on a lighter note, I would like to say যে আমাদের দেশে আমরা হচ্ছি at least কিছু বছর আগে অবধি যে আমাদের বাবা মারা যতদিন বেঁচে থাকবে তাদেরকে সবকিছু সবসময় তাদের আদেশ তাদের কথা মেনে আমাদের চলা উচিত। সেটা না হলে প্রচন্ড একটা অভিমানের জায়গা তৈরি হয়। So if a 60-year-old is buying a plot of land and he hasn't told his father, who is 80 or 85 years old, then the father will say, "O to ajkal ar amake kichui bole na." So I mean, this is actually something that is where this fostering dependency, making decisions, parents making decisions, ছোটবেলা থেকে এই জামাটা পরবে, এখন ওঠো, এখন বসো, and when they become a bit older and they start challenging these values because they at the time that they are teenagers, তখন ওদের abstract thinking এবং rational brain-এর যে huge একটা amount যে বাড়তে শুরু করে, সেই জায়গা থেকে তাদের নিজেদের যখন আইডেন্টিটি তৈরি হয়, তখন ওদের মধ্যে যে চেঞ্জেসগুলো হয় সেগুলো হয়তো আমাদের সেগুলো মেনে নেওয়া মুশকিল। এবং এখন আমরা সেকেন্ড রাউন্ডে আসছি। One of the things that I think that Devopriyo mentioned, and which I feel is happening, that this is the very first time that parents are being taught by their children. আগাগোড়া আমরা বাচ্চাদের শিখিয়েছি এবং children used to look up to their parents as a big umbrella who not only provided security but who had all the answers. যে কোনো প্রবলেম হলে বাবা মার কাছে গেলে বাবা মার একটা সলিউশন দেবে। আজকে সিনারিওটা পুরো রিভার্স করে গেছে। আজকে কিছু হলেই ওই আমরা আমাদের বাবুদের ডাকি, মানে বাবু বয়ফ্রেন্ড না বাট বাবু বাচ্চা, যাকে বলি যে এই আমার ফোনটা এই হয়েছে ঠিক করে দে, এই আমার কম্পিউটারে এই হয়েছে। সো ইচ অ্যান্ড এভরি প্যারেন্ট হু ওয়ার্কস, মানে আমাদের চেম্বারের চৌকাঠ পেরিয়ে যারাই আসে তারা একটা জিনিস বলে, জানেন তো ও ভীষণ ইন্টেলিজেন্ট, ও মানে এই তো একদম জন্মেই পুরো মোবাইলে সব কিছু করতে পারে। So parents are now in awe of their children. They are totally, they feel that, you know, this is the future. West Bengal has so many Nobel laureates and now we have a British Prime Minister who's Indian. So এখন তো আমাদের এক্সপেকটেশন এ এত কিছু জানে পরেই তো ওই জায়গাটা নেবে। তো সেই যে একটা বিইং ইন অ অফ ইয়োর চাইল্ড, and the child begins to realize not only does a child have that technological information or knowledge that is required, but the child is now being able to use that skill to manipulate their parents. And we are, even if we join that, মানে প্রত্যেক দিন একটা নতুন টার্ম ব্যবহার হয়, নতুন একটা কিছু ডিজিটালি একটা কিছু হচ্ছে, এবং অ্যাকচুয়ালি টু কিপ abreast of all that is happening আমাদের কিন্তু মানে একটা যেরকম বিএ এমএ ক্লাসের জন্য যে অ্যামাউন্ট অফ টাইম ডিভোট করতে হয়, আমার মনে হয় আমাদের অলমোস্ট সেরকম একটা কিছু করতে হবে। বাট এনিওয়ে, কামিং ব্যাক টু Devapriyo, you have already shared your experiences with your, you know, what's been happening with your daughters. Ekhane vis-a-vis, you joined their sort of, you know, joined them, but when they were a bit older, when they were teenagers, and when they sort of, I don't know whether they were into gadgets in a big way, and did you face any problems, you know, that you felt that your parents never had to deal with but you had to, because we are living in this digital era?
I think the basic thing is we don't understand the digital era, right? I think most of us don't have any idea of what a digital era is. Let me make it very clear. There is a world that we know of. Okay. I had an older cousin who at 21, when he was in college, at the height of the Naxal movement, some older people may relate, was veering towards the Naxal movement. His mother, my aunt, got one of his friends and said, go shadow him. If he goes to the Naxal guys, come and tell me, I will make sure that he doesn't do that. Right? This is the real world. There is a digital world which is mirroring the real world. You need to be present in the digital world just as you are in the real world. If somebody comes to you and says, my son is doing this, in the real world, as Rima pointed out, we know what to do. If somebody comes and says, this is what your child is doing in the digital world, you have no idea there is a digital world, you don't know how to get in there, and you don't know how to find out what your child is doing. Now, I had an advantage, as I said, because I am in that sector. I am the guy who was creating part of the digital world. Okay, as it stands. But obviously not everybody has that.
As far as digital space is concerned,
My grandson will be 2 on 15th November. That's just a few days away. But my grandson knows his cocomelon very well. He can change, he can identify his own the song that he wants, and he sees it. So I told my son and daughter-in-law. I'm not an interfering grandma. And they live separately. I don't have time to look after the little baby. When it comes, I say, he's sweet, Shundar, Esho Babu. He removes his face away. But that's okay. I let him be. That's what, I'm not a grandmother who's there hovering around him. But sometimes he gives me his cocoa melon. And he lets me hear Donald Duck. So that's it. You know, and the only thing that he gives me the phone and says, Mickey Mouse. That means he can't find it, so find it. I'm getting used to that. Because he's being born to the digital era. My son wasn't. It was just the beginning. And I learned with him. What you were talking about, Facebook, I opened my account. 2 years later, my son I opened it because I wanted to meet up with friends because I wanted to popularize my film. This was in 2008. So I opened my Facebook account and I would write about my film and things. And much to my son, son's kind of, you know, he used to always say, Mom, you don't write about yourself only. You know, try and, you know, you're only trying to promote your film on Facebook. That's not what you're supposed to do. So I said, how do you know? He said, I'm also on the Facebook. So I said, but I don't know. He said, don't send me a friend request because I won't accept. And I don't want you stalking me. So I said, you're stalking me. He said, that's different. I'm just trying to find out whether you're doing it right or not. So, you know, he was trying to stop me. So that happened. Today, what is happening is, this little child, I'm sure, will tell his parents when he's 4 only, because everything is online. Everybody is studying online. I have a co-director whose son is 5 years old, and he has last 2 years he couldn't go to school, so his school was online. Everything was online. So now he knows everything about the mobile phone and how to get whatever he wants. So as a result, he sometimes doesn't talk. It is a problem that has arisen because of the mobile generation, because of this Cocomelon and the internet generation. They are communicating with the phone. And parents also find it easier to, if you are eating dinner together and the child is sitting there, you give him the phone, you can eat your dinner in peace. I was trying to remember what did I do, because I used to also take my son. And I remember those days when once we went to Peter Cat, and I remember while having cello kebab, those days I was not a vegetarian, I found my son picking up my poached egg and scattering it all over the restaurant. And he was rolling on the floor. And we decided that we would not go to fancy places. We would take him to places where he could run around and roll on the floor. So we used to go to a place called Astor, which was close to our house, which had an open air garden, and he could run around. So, you know, you had to, but nowadays people don't think of that. Okay, we've taken him to Mainland China, so let him sit, watch the cartoon, and we can eat in peace. So this is something which I'm not going to tell them, because they have to find their own parenting. I just keep telling my daughter-in-law about people who are not, children who are not talking because of this, trying to scare her. But it's true. It's true. When they were going, they went for a holiday. So I said, "Ebare to tale phone ta diyo na kisi." They said, "Na, tale to holiday ta puro mati ho jabe. He'll be there 24 hours, and if we don't give him the phone, we won't be able to enjoy." That's true also, but I saw that the child enjoyed a lot more when he was on the seaside, wetting his feet. He was with nature, and the only time he got angry was when the big wave came and sort of got lashed him. He got so angry, he picked up stones and threw it at the sea. So these are the things. We are not doing activities. I'm not against the digital era at all. I'm very much part of it. But I think parents, young parents who are busy parents have to now let up on the phone. They have to realize, when my son was growing up, it was the television. He would watch the television. But because my mother was there, and she rationed his television time. So therefore the phone has to be rationed as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sudeshna Ji. And when we were young, our storybooks used to be rationed, because we had our storybooks in between our exercise books and
our comics.
So,
we weren't allowed to read comics.
And yes, and we had to, I used to use a torchlight to read a storybook in the dark. So, you know, every generation has a baddie, you know. It's like butter. Butter was at one time a baddie, it's become a goodie, but no. What I mean to say, like, storybooks were a baddie, but now they have, janen to golper boi pori. So now it's become a good thing. A virtue, but when we were young, it wasn't. So we are nearly at the end of our discussion, and I will start the next part with Anuttama. Basically that you see a lot of young adults who are in virtual relationships, and then we have these whole new terms that we are learning, ghosting and what are they? I just know, I'm currently only being able to remember ghosting, but
Not that even I know all of them.
okay, but yes, I agree.
Stalking is one of them.
Yeah, stalking is there.
Yeah, stalking is there, yeah, but yeah, ghosting and whatever. Gaslighting is something else. That's something else.
There for a long time, and that's a different
Yeah. So basically what I want to say is that I don't know if the young adults who come to you, whether their parents ever come to you saying, that they're very concerned about this digital problem, because they really have no role models to follow and they're very confused. So my first part of my question is, do parents of older, adults, do they come about digital issues? Okay, so answer that and I'll go on to the third round.
Mostly, some of the young adults that I see, they come on their own, and at times they tell me that I have come to you because I know that you believe in a one-to-one alliance. I often say that in my clinic, and you may not involve my parents unless I want. And I assure them, yes, unless you give me a green signal, I will not call them. Sometimes, as we were seeing also in the short videos, the parents enter the room first and they say that amra or byapare ekটু বলতে চাই, or mobile addiction আছে, and trust me, this is the word that I've been hearing for quite a few years now. Not even in my clinic. I have had this experience that I'm walking in the book fair, suddenly an anxious father comes to me and says, oh, apni to psychology. Anyway, and then the next question, আমার ছেলেকে মোবাইল অ্যাডিকশন থেকে করে বার করবে একটু বলতে পারেন? আরে আপাতত আমি একটা স্টল খুঁজে পেয়ে যাই, আমি তারপর এটা নিয়ে একটু কথা বলবো। So anyway, this mobile addiction, and as Sudeshna was saying, Rimadi, you mentioned about the storybook, even in our time, cable TV, the moment it came, we were told, JJ Barite, these connections will be taken, the children's lives, their academics will go for a toss. I myself remember that whenever there was anything that I wanted to watch, particularly I still remember that just before the day of our abnormal psychology paper, there was Stepmom happening in Star Movies. I just couldn't resist. And I watched the entire film because to me, my logic was, nobody was there to ration it, of course. My logic was, even if I'm not going to watch Stepmom right now, I would only be thinking about Julia Roberts. I will not study. And this is my commitment to Julia Roberts. So I have to be there. I have to watch it. And I told my father with some kind of guilt that, Baba, I actually wasted the whole evening. And he told me that if you fail for wasting an evening just before your examination, maybe you were entitled to fail. Because what were you doing for all this time? So anyhow, thankfully I didn't fail. But these problems were always there, Rimati. But I think, when parents come and they talk about these concerns, as Devopriya Babu very correctly said, since this is an unknown devil, it's an unknown threat, we do not know how to go about it. It's easy to, have a simplistic idea that mobile jonni shob gondogol hoye jacche. I do not quite agree with that. Yes, it is very competitive, because when I was actually listening to Devopriya Babu and I was thinking that when the digital world starts imitating the world, it has actually imitated so better. This is, dimensional with so much music, light and entertainment material that children are not inclined towards storybooks anymore because they can see the animated version of it. So we are actually going through a tough competition. Parents do not know how to hold an engaging conversation because the children are getting bored too easily. They have better alternatives and we haven't pulled up our socks, and that's another story because we are already drained in our work life and other issues. So even if we try to take a pause and learn and do things so that our children also have a meaningful encounter with us, that's so exhausting most of the time. So we want that, but we are not being able to do that. I think digital understanding is important. It is also important to know their language. Very recently I have come to know the difference between hooking up and dating from a client of mine. I keep growing from my clients and I often ask them that, Acha, so what is the difference? They say, no, when you're going for a date but you're not ready to sleep, you say no to hooking up, you say only yes to dating. I said, got it. Now, if suddenly a child comes and tells the mother that actually, I had gone for a date but I was forced to hook up, you have to take the cue. She's talking about intimate relationship violence or dating violence, and it's real. Unless I have these meanings with me, I will not understand the problem of my child. Now, if I start the whole conversation, "Tumi gechhilei keno," the whole purpose is lost. We have to start from where she has come from. What is her concern? Her concern is not to get a gyan about why should I date. Her concern is, I did not give consent for sex, I was only ready for a kiss. That's her concern. Listen to that part of the story. So I think learning is a constant process, Srinadi. Digital learning is also not about digital stalking. I have seen parents doing this helicopter parenting, I learned this term from Rimadi actually, doing digitally, and it's so very easy. And I'm not surprised that Sudeshna, your son, told you that I'm not going to accept your friend request. Most of the young adults do not accept their parents. They lock their profiles, they just want to vanish into thin air digitally, and they are far better than us. Just that if we have that trust, that, well, I may not understand your world, but I'm inclined not to control you. I'm inclined not to interrogate you. I'm inclined just to be a part of your life. In case you are discussing something with me, I'm not really a friend that I will always say, chal amra ekshate kori. No, you don't have to do that. You don't even have to support all the things that your child is doing, but just be accepting. I have also, often told to the parents when they, come for some sort of sessions where I have told them that আমি কি করে appreciate করতে পারছি না যে এটা করছে। I said appreciate করতে হবে না, be authentic. Please এটাই ওকে বলুন যে আমি বুঝতে পারছি তুমি কেন করছো, আমি না এটা appreciate করতে পারছি না। Let's be genuine. I do not have to support you, but that does not necessarily mean I have to go out of my way to be against you. Let us break that dichotomy. Since I work extensively with gender sexuality, a lot of people who are coming out to their families, who are now realizing that they are having some sort of strong gender dysphoria, they often bring their parents. এবং অনেক সময় আমি দেখেছি যে a mother who is a very firm believer of Christianity is telling me that God will never forgive me. God will never forgive me. And somewhere I had to ask, do you forgive your son? Let's start from there. Because I have also learned a different religion where I believe God is there, right in front of me. So what about this question? Why can't we start from here? Society will not accept. Do you accept? Society will not ring the bell. You are inside the house. Let's start from us. Can we at least try and do that? I do not have to understand the jargon. I just have to understand the genuine emotion of my child, and I have to tell my child that you may mess up. I might be angry. I might be anxious. I might also mess up as a parent. But I'm there with you. I'm there for you. You will still remain the same person to me. That's it. And the rest we can figure out.
Very, very, very good. Very, very good. So now we have been talking about parenting all this while, but now comes the most difficult question, and it's the same question for everybody. It is that, do you think at all it is parenting, tutor kora, and maybe understanding or reducing the confusion and knowing the roles that perhaps parents need to know what they, there are no rights and wrongs. But at least if there was some understanding, better understanding about how to deal, especially when they become teenagers, I think there would be far less agony. I mean, parenting would be less agonizing, an agonizing process. So do you think at all that it is acceptable? Hotat jodi apan boli je parents hobar age please enroll. There's a diploma course, there's a certificate course, or there's a graduation course depending on how many children you want to have or how well you want to bring up. So enroll in a course and do this, 3-month or 6-month course. Do you think anybody is going to be willing to do that? I'll start with you.
I don't think courses work because every situation, every parent-child relationship is unique. Take off on that. Say, as long as the child knows that you are there, that you are making an effort to understand what is going on and will guide if required, and more importantly, will stay away if they want you to, so that they can figure out, I think your job is done. Yes, digitally you may not be able to see what they are doing, but they can always tell you on the internet what they are doing. You may not be friends with them on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and everything else. So you may not be able to follow what they are doing. But if you talk to them and say, you're on Twitter, what do you do? And they try and explain to you why they are on Twitter, what they do on Twitter. And you can follow that and say, okay, he wants to get involved in this technology because these are the extra benefits I'm getting. I'll get back to one of these things. Facebook, right? Facebook has this concept of groups, private groups. Okay? Private groups basically means that nobody can enter the group unless you're specifically invited. Right? So you remember when we were kids, we used to do study workshops with friends and all that. And there is a daughter sitting there right in front of me who I will take it as an example. She's a doctor as well. In her second year, at about 3 in the morning, again one of those flights, so I'm leaving the home, and I see her talking from her bed with a headphone. I don't say anything, I come back and say, what was that all about? She says, I have a group of 12 people that is a study group for me. And we study only in the night because in the daytime it's very noisy. So when we have a problem or we want to discuss something, all of us log into that Facebook private group and we study together. Without the internet, this was not possible. Every child, every kid is in his or her own bed. And they're still studying together the digital version of what we used to do. For us, I remember when I used to do this, I would take 2 or 3 friends, go over to a 4th friend's house and spend the night. A lot of us have done that. And we actually study through the night. And sometimes we'll study alone, sometimes we'll ask them for help. That is exactly what they do. But it's the digital world that allowed them to do that. So there are a lot of these benefits that will come from being in the digital world that they will take advantage of. And you need to appreciate the fact that they understand digital world much better than you do, most of us at least. And a mobile phone is not a gadget. A mobile phone is a form of engagement. They're engaging with other people. It's a consumption device. When they were kids, we rationed their TV time. Right? All of us have done that. And we said 3 hours of TV a day. The problem was they were watching particular episodes of series, right? Breaking Bad, this, that and the other. And they would come on particular times of the day. Come between 10:30 and 11 in the morning or 6:30 and 7 in the evening. And they may be busy at that time. Right? So a 3-hour window really didn't work for them. So what did they do? They flipped it. And they said, you know what? all the serials that are on the TV that I want to watch, I will never watch them on TV. My TV time will be zero. I will watch them on the internet on my laptop. And I will limit that to 3 years, which works great for both of us. So now they can watch it at 1 in the morning, they can watch it at 9 in the night, whatever they want. But as long as that 3 hours limit is being there, again, we allowed them, we put some boundaries that they accepted, but they did it in a way where they were maximizing their time by watching it on the internet, not on the TV. If the internet wasn't there, or if the serials were not on the internet, they couldn't have done it. So a mobile phone today is, as I said, an engaging device. And how you engage with other people is basically what you do in the mobile. You can be on WhatsApp, you can be on Facebook, you can be on Instagram, you're tracking each other. When I came here, I sent the Google Pin map to her, saying, I need directions. All of those are part of the mobile today, which wasn't that before. So the addiction is not really mobile addicted হয়ে গেছে। The addiction is কি করছে মোবাইল, যদি পড়াশোনা করছে, যদি ম্যাপ দেখছে, যদি অন্য কিছু করছে, you find it. What you may want to do is to say, what is it that you're doing? Don't do this more than this, or whatever, and have a chat with them to find out why they're doing whatever they're doing. But even today, there are technologies that the mobile phone does not do. That day is not far off that the mobile phone will do everything. Especially with 5G being rolled out right now. I don't, anybody who knows what 5G is, you can download a 2-hour video in less than 5 minutes. That's what 5G is going to do.
Okay, so we are going to get further scared by all that you are planning to do. So let's stick to whether you feel that parents don't need to be tutored. And you've said a lot of things which I agree. So let's move on to Dr. Banerjee. What would you have to say? Whether do you at all think that this is acceptable? That parents are going to be told yes if you tell them they are going to go into a course or a diploma? Acceptable.
I would suggest that how about workshops? Like say, the main thrust should be on effective communication between parents and children. You should learn to effectively communicate, and the sources of effective communication can be multifaceted. As Sir pointed out, you could interact to the friends, you could have your ways of getting your information about your kid. Whether they are abusing their freedom, whether they're effectively using it, that needs to be monitored. And I personally believe that you are in a position to offer guidance, workshop, screen times, and we are sitting here in a very charmed circle, amongst privileged people. We should not forget, being the urban elite, the downtrodden sections, where connectivity and other issues are a challenge. And in spite of that, when we were taking online classes, there were students who were complaining, who were attending classes from far-fetched remote areas like Sundarbans, who could not join, who did not have a steady connection. Okay, so these issues are there. So in a digital age, the socio-political circumstances vary from culture. We cannot really confine ourselves to an elite group. That is also something which we need to remember. And secondly, I remember, it can never be a substitute. Like the other day I found around 10 students, there was total silence in the classroom. All of them were busy, with their kind of burning their thumb out on their mobile phones. Pin drop silence. Even in family gatherings, that takes a very ominous turn. When you find parents, but in spite of that you find they're all communicating, but then again, in a social setup, there is no effective communication. They're so near, yet so far away in their own worlds. So there are various wide-ranging issues. So proper parenting, I believe, workshops are essential, they need to be guided, screen time even when they're going out in the social media. Okay, I believe that needs to be effectively monitored. I was planning to join this, I'm a member of various wildlife groups because I'm passionate about it. And I was planning to join this one on the spiritual group called Advaita Vedanta, and they stunned me by saying that we will ask you 2 questions. If you can answer those 2 questions, we will allow you to join our group. So that really flummoxed me, and then they sent across couple of questions, which was, it's a very basic question, why do you want to join the group? Okay, and what does it mean to you? So what I mean to say, everything needs to be tried and tested. And for parents, they need to ensure effective communication. And for the first time, the tables are turned the other way around. Your counterpart is more well equipped than you are. Okay, so they may know the ways of dodging you, okay, very easily, and you can be fooled in any way. But the best thing is to do is to be a good friend and to ensure effective communication. That is very, very important. That can come from multiple sources in course of very casual discussions, but not through spying on them or keeping a tap on them in a very intrusive manner. That is not desirable. I wouldn't recommend that at all. But for that reason, I believe you can consider some workshops.
We do have workshops.
And parents can definitely benefit, especially in schools. That's a perfect space.
Okay, on a lighter note, you just mentioned that, families sit together and they don't talk to each other. There was this, long time back, there was this, at a restaurant, there was this, the boy who was, serving the food. He went up to a couple and said, "Apnara Shami Stri, na?" তখন বললো যে কেন আপনারা তো কথা বলছেন না so long before the digital era I think after a while family members don't talk to each other. I mean that's what maintains the equilibrium. So Sudeshna, what is your take on whether it is acceptable, whether parenting is going to be acceptable? I mean, unless we are actually teaching them to become more digital or tech savvy, but otherwise, is it something acceptable?
Okay. This is the ladies' microphone. That's the gents' microphone. So I've taken it on. I will therefore talk about my mom, who was quite. She gave me a lot of leeway, but one of the things, it was not a digital era, but we had a phone. She would always tell me that wherever you are, please try and give me a call if you're going to be late. If you cannot come, 6 o'clock was, or Shurjo Doba was my discipline. So 6 o'clock in summer, but in winter it's 5 o'clock. So I needed that extra time and I would call her. And she said, if you don't call, I don't want any excuse, I'll go and do a missing diary in the police station. And she did it once. I didn't call, I came back at 7 and I found that she had gone to the Park Street police station. I ran there and I said, I'm here. She was then actually in the point of writing a diary. After that I was never late. Or I would always inform. That was her way. When my son grew up, he was I believed in, being a friend also, but I didn't have time to encroach on this. I didn't cook for him at all because I didn't want to waste time cooking. I wanted to talk to him. So we used to go to Pizza Hut, which was our favorite haunt. We used to go and eat and we talked about many things. One of those things was his grandmother, that's my mother, who used to teach him, and he would complain about her. And I would also say, she used to do that to me also. Onko na parli hate marto. So he said that you must tell Didu not to do this. I said, see, I can't, but you tell her.
How good he is, how good his childhood was, how great my great-great-great-grandfathers were, and what a worthless person I am. Please don't do that. Let us even not put ourselves as reference points because they are born in a different time. You do not understand how the things, as Devapura Babu was mentioning, not only about the digital era, about everything. Because the internal working models we have that are coming from our childhood, keep your nostalgia for your cathartic writing in Facebook. Do not use that all the time while you're talking to the child. because they are representing future, they're representing here and now, what we often talk about. Listen to that here and now. And I would also like to end with this thing that, we talked about parenting, how life can be damaged if the parenting is not really conducive for us. But I have a completely different take here, Rimadi, going by the earlier, that we are not determined by our genes, we are not determined by the environment. We choose to take things and we choose to become who we are, because we can be impacted by what had happened to us, but we cannot be reduced, we cannot be decided by that. When we grow up, well, if I have had a difficult time in my childhood, it will be difficult to deconstruct and reconstruct. It will be effortful. It will not be impossible. You are much larger than what you have grown up with, who you have grown up with. You are not only the mere representations of your childhood experiences.
Fantastic. I don't think anything else needs to be said after this. So, for all of you, we have come to the end of our program. My sincere thanks to, apart from you, to my Crystal family, to Altius for being the primary sponsors, to Rainwear for all their the promotional work that they have done, to the dignitaries and the panelists for giving their time and very interesting, they had a lot of very interesting and insightful things to say. And with this, I would like to end.